Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the round 2 of the 2020 TCR Eastern Europe Virtual Championship. So we started 2 weeks ago with the first round in Hungary, just outside Budapest, or the virtual capital of Budapest, let's say. And just a fortnight after that, we keep on going. This time we will be racing at Red Bull Ring in Austria. We saw a really interesting couple of races 2 weeks ago, although there was a pretty dominant display by Polish colours. It was Bartosz Groszek who absolutely demolished the competition 2 weeks ago when he not only scored the first pole position of the season, but also won both of the races and showed his competitors that he will be really hard to beat this season. We've had a number of interesting battles, number of interesting incidents, and Bartosz Groszek actually had to also show us that he is not only fast in qualifying and escaping the pack, but also overtaking on track because, as the rules say in the TCR series, the grid order for the race number 2 is reversed. So he started down in 10th and had to fight his way back up to first. And there was then a nice battle a few laps from home with him and Petr Fulin. So Petr Fulin came home second in that race. Bartosz Groszek, therefore, is also our championship leader after round number 1, and he has scored the maximum 90 points so far. Then it is Miklas Born actually in second because he scored well in both of the races. Petr Fulin currently sitting third in the standing. So let's see how the drivers will, how their luck will be and how the races will pan out here in Austria. And we are joining the qualifying session for the second time this year. The driver's already out on track. 20 minutes to set the fastest laps they can. And it is already Bartosz Groszek on the screen. He appears to be the fastest already, but let's not be mistaken just yet, because these are only the out laps and the drivers are only on their first flying laps. Bartosz Groszek actually made the most of the virtual world, we need to say, because maybe the real world drivers usually tend to stick to whatever they know from the real world racing. And for example, what they know is that anything else than the so-called black stuff is actually a recipe for trouble. And especially the curbs. I mean, even in the real world racing, you see drivers cutting curbs as much as they possibly can, but they already know that if the running over curbs is maybe too harsh, then they risk not only setting a slower lap time and unsettling their car, but also damaging their machine, which is something that does not happen that often in virtual racing. And just take a look at the line that Bartosz Grosek is using in pretty much every corner. He's really trying to straighten it out as much as he possibly can. So really wide entries, cutting the apexes as much as he can, and then really wide exits of all the corners. That was the recipe for dominance in Hungary. Especially in the second sector chicane, which he pretty much managed to straighten out in a very nice straight line here in Austria. As you can see, there are lots of wide runoffs these days. So it's, well, the days are long gone when the runoffs were all gravel. Now there is lots of tarmac outside the track limits as well, and drivers can really make use of that. We are now watching the Hungarian driver Balint Hatvany, who is also trying to choose the wide line on the entry. And Bartosz Grosek so far making the most of it. Also here in Austria, 135.9. That's his first effort in this qualifying. Then we've got Mettler in second, 135.4. And there is really a very close gap between him and Balint Hatvany. So in second and third. So the 20-minute qualifying session panning out. And then we'll see two equally long races that are set roughly for 55 kilometers each. Let's not forget that the qualifying is very important for setting up the order for the starting grid of race number one. But not only that, already in qualifying, drivers score first points of the weekend, and not just the first few. The first top 10 positions are rewarded with points, so it is actually 10 points for the qualifying winner, and then all the way down to 10th with 1 point for that position. And then in each race, the maximum points that you can win is 40, and the points are awarded all the way down to 15th. So we are watching Petr Fulin. He was on course to take his first victory of the season in the second race in Hungary. However, a couple of laps from home, he was overtaken by Bartosz Grosek. It was a nice battle for victory there. Petr Fulin had been victorious in Hungary in the virtual world already this year when he entered a GT3 championship a couple of months earlier. Actually, that season only ended last Sunday, so 2 days ago, and Petr Fulin was the last winner. So he is coming to Hungary on the back of a victory success. He tasted victory. That was in the Czech Republic, so on his homeland in Brno, where he clinched a triumph in a Porsche 911, and now he is back to his Cupra TCR and into Austria. Another great thing about virtual racing, you can swap machinery and racetracks really quickly. Not that some drivers cannot do that in the real world as well. And it's definitely no problem in the real world to travel from Brno to Red Bull Ring in a very short amount of time. Actually, these tracks are really close to one another. The Masaryk circuit near Brno, located in southeast of the Czech Republic, whereas Red Bull Ring, roughly some 70 kilometers from Graz in Austria. Niklas Born, currently our second most successful man. He has scored 66 points so far. He was second in the first qualifying of the season in Hungary, and then he got himself onto the podium in race number 1. He was actually third behind Bartosz Groszek and Balint Hatváň. Balint Hatváň did well on his home race track. Came home second actually in race number 1. Then it was a bit more of a low-key performance in race number 2. He scored 11 points there. And 11 points, that means 10th place. Bartosz Groszek, still the fastest, working on getting some heat into his tires before a next attempt. He has already improved, and he had to, because Petr Fulin has also been on a great run, and the Czech driver improved his lap time to 1:35.229, but still Bartosz Groszek a tenth of a second faster. So he's been able to maybe abuse those track limits that little bit better. Just look at that. He's really, really making the corner entry as wide as possible so that he can carry as much speed into the corner as he can. But it needs to be said that in that corner he was off the track with all 4 wheels, and that is something that we shouldn't really be seeing, or maybe the stewards might want to be seeing that once again in their review. And it also needs to be added that the curb is not counted as part of the track when it comes to assessing track limits. Petr Fulin still in close second. And we then have Yannick Mettler, one of the 4 Team Autorama AG by Wolf Power drivers. And they have been using the Volkswagen Golf GTI in the TCR version. There he is, Yannick Mettler, one of the Swiss drivers on track. There is no home race for them, simply because Switzerland, to this date, still bans motorsport. Something that came into action after the horrifying crash at Le Mans in 1955. So it's already been quite a long history of not allowing any racing activities, maybe other than hill climbs, let's say, in the country, and deeming motorsport too dangerous. It's still, to this date, the 1955 Le Mans crash remains the worst horror that has ever happened on a racetrack. Some 80 people were killed in that incident when one of the cars flew out of the track and into the grandstand. An appalling tragedy. Balint Hatvaň, let's say only in fourth. Bartosz Groszek improving further still, 135.0. So he has shed another couple of tenths of a second, sorry, hundredths of a second. He's been really on it. And it needs to be said that it's not like a brutally dominant lap, because as you can see, Peter is not very far behind, only 1.5 tenths of a second, but still it is Bartosz Groszek, not anybody else, on the provisional pole. So he has been holding on to that second qualifying victory on a trot and not really allowing anybody into first. Yannick Mettler in third. Then we've got Szymon Ladniak actually improving. There he goes with his Volkswagen. Szymon Ladniak set a lap time of 1:35.4 and jumped Balint Hatvaň into fourth. Joachim Galash currently in the pits, but still we've got more than 5 minutes left on the clock, so there's still plenty of time to get back out on track and simply try again. And that is exactly what Joachim Galash is doing at the moment. He has left the pit lane and he's preparing himself for more. There he goes. Currently it is Bartosz Groszek who is back in the pits. Maybe making some last gasp adjustments. There's not a whole lot that you can actually do with your car within the series. Pretty much playing with the tire pressures is one of the very few things that you can actually do to your car to improve the performance. So if you really want to squeeze something out, something more, then you've got to find that improvement, as they say, between the keyboard and the chair. Or in other words, in your hands. So Petr Fulin still second, but look at that. He has improved, but it's still not enough. And it only shows that Bartosz Groszek is not dominating. Bartosz Groszek needs to keep improving because his opponents are also improving. This is Bartosz Groszek on the out lap, warming up his tires and preparing for the next run. Petr Fulin back into pits, also making last minute adjustments. 24 thousandths of a second, a quarter of a tenth of a second. That's absolutely unbelievable. The gap between the first two drivers, Bartosz Groszek and Petr Fulin. Yannick Mettler in third, Szymon Ladniak in fourth, Balint Hatvaň fifth, Joachim Galash in sixth, Niklas Born so far only seventh. We would really expect the second placed man in the championship to be further higher up the grid. There he goes. Another of the VW drivers. So the German brand really dominating the standings. It is Bartosz Groszek driving a VW. Also Yannick Mettler, Szymon Ladniak, then Joachim Galash, Niklas Born. And then Konstantin Kletzer, which means 6 out of 10 cars in the top 10 are Volkswagen Golf GTIs. Then we've got one Cupra in the hands of Petr Fulin. Also Balint Hatvaň driving in a Alfa Romeo Giulietta. Platzer navigating a Audi RS3 around the Austrian track, and Gabčílková competing as the sole entry with the Hyundai i30N. There she goes with the Korean car. Although it needs to be said that in serial production, the i30s if I'm not mistaken, are actually produced in Slovakia. So also not that far from here. So time for some last efforts. Bartosz Groszek improving further still. But again, only just 135.012. So he's chopped another couple of hundredths of a second. This was not a good moment for Petr Furin, having to overtake one of the slower cars and preparing for the next flying lap. Petr Furin on his last flyer, already entering the sector number 2. And he's also taken a leaf out of Bartosz Groszek's book there, because he's really trying to use as much of that entry curb as possible. Something that might not work that much in real world racing. It really depends on the nature of the track and actually the harshness of the curb itself. And here in the virtual racing, which forgives you a lot, needs to be said, it's really important to straighten out your line as much as you can. Petr Furin entering the start and finish straight, making the exit as wide as possible. Let's see his lap time, 1:35.09. He will not improve on that, so Petr Furin remains second, and it already looks that the Polish driver will not be knocked down even in the second qualifying of the season. So far, there has not been any session where Bartosz Groszek would be beaten. Bartosz Groszek, it seems already that he will claim the second pole position of the season. On the front row, he will be joined by Petr Furin. Second row for Yannick Mettler and Szymon Ladniak. In fifth, we've got Balint Hatváň. Sixth for Joachim Galáš. Then Miklas Born, Keke Platze, Gabče Jilková, and Konstantin Kletzer. That is our top 10 from the second qualifying session of the season. Then we've got Tomáš Pekář, Tomáš Korený, and so on and so on. We've got some nearly 30 cars on the grid, so it should be really interesting racing here in Austria. But right now, what we know that the 10 points, the maximum 10 points, go to Bartosz Groszek. So Bartosz Groszek again maximizing the point scoring as much as he can, and it is his second pole position in a row. He has been dominant, and he decides that he likes being dominant, and yeah, he will continue to do so as long as no rival finds his way past. So it will be really interesting to see if the racing brings anything else from or anything different from what we've seen so far this season. Bartosz Groszek still dominating the Polish colors, flying really high in the TCR Eastern Europe I Series for 2020, and we will be really excited to see how the race number 1 here in Austria pans out. Let's not forget that the first corner is quite sharp and quite narrow, so although there is a bit of a runoff area, still it is a great place for dramatic action, for some collisions, and for some mixing up of the order. So let's really see what happens there. And this is the results of the qualifying. Bartosz Groszek dominating again. Well, we say dominating because the results show so. However, The gap is only 78 thousandths of a second. That is virtually nothing. So it could really pan out any way, but it is Bartosz Groszek who is leading the way in the end yet again. Petr Fulin joining him on row number 1. And then, as commented on, we said it is Yannick Mettler in third, Šimon Ladniak in fourth, then Balint Hatvaň, Joachim Galáš, Miklas Born, Keke Platze, Gabča Jilková, and Konstantin Kletze completing the top 10. You can also see the respective gaps between the drivers, and the gaps really are very, very low, very, very small. You really have to search a lot if you want to find something over 0.2 of a second. So the pecking order really closed up. So that's just a great promise for race number 1. We are supposed to see, or we should see, brilliant racing action in this race number 1. It will be contested over 55 kilometers, and let's see what those 55 kilometers bring us. So, race number 1 here in Austria, ready for us, and the question still remains the same. Will we find somebody who could beat Bartosz Groszek this season? He has been absolutely perfect so far. He won the qualifying in both races 2 weeks ago in Hungary, and let's not forget that this race will not only decide more points, but also the grid order for race number 2, and the clever spin is that we are reversing the top 12 from race number 1. So whoever finishes 12th in race number 1 will then start from pole position in race number 2. However, it also means that the victor of race number 1 will then have to play a lot of catch up in race number 2, and will show us that he can really do some overtaking. We've seen that already in Hungary, track that does not really promise for much of overtaking, although already there the TCR drivers showed us that they don't really take that as a problem, and they can really find the space if they need to do so. A Red Bull Ring should provide for a bit more of an action. It's a bit more wider, it's a bit more opened up, and pretty much every corner is really slow and comes up or follows up after a long straight. So we are joining the action directly on track, and it is Bartosz Groszek on pole from Petr Fulin and Yannick Mettler. These are the top 3 guys. We are still missing the 4th placed Šimon Ladniak. Let's hope he will be able to join the action as well. Yes, there he goes with his VW. So everything set for race number 1 here in Austria. And we are racing. Bartosz Groszek starting from pole. He seems to be holding on to that first place nicely in the run up to the first corner, using as much as curb as he possibly can. Petr Fulin keeping second into the first corner. Gabča Jilková already using a lot of the runoff area, just like many other drivers. This is Keke Platze in his Audi. Balint Hatvaň has managed to shoot himself up into 4th. Miklas Born making a nice getaway, and there's a crash already in the second corner. A couple of cars off the track. There was one of the Audi RS3s. But it is Bartosz Groszek leading the way from Petr Fulin. Balint Hatvaň overtaking Yannick Mettler and stealing 3rd from him. So this Swiss driver falling down to 4th. Then he's got his compatriot Miklas Born, who really made a great getaway and managed to get himself up into 5th. Joachim Galáš remaining in 6th. This is Gabča Jilková trying to trouble Tomáš Pekař. They are battling it out for 9th, so Gabča Jilková lost a place after the start. This is Keke Platze in his Audi RS3, keeping his 8th position from the start. In front of them, one of the Alphas. We are completing lap number 1 out of 13. And it is Bartosz Groszek leading already by more than a second, even close to 2 seconds. That's just how fast Bartosz Groszek is. Petr Petr Fulin keeping second in front of Balint Hatvaň, Yannick Mettler in fourth, then Miklas Born in fifth, Joachim Galash behind them. And this is the battle for fourth between the two Autorama teammates, and it is Miklas Born overtaking Yannick Mettler. So Miklas Born, the second man of the championship standings, moving up the order, and he definitely needs to do so because the qualifying session did not really work out well for him. So he's got a lot of work to do in the race number one. But so far he's been doing really well. This is Miklas Born navigating his way around the second sector. And Groszek in the lead, trying to extend his gap over 2 seconds. But it seems as though Petr Fulin has managed to level up his pace at least a little bit, but he's got to keep an eye on his rearview mirrors because there is a battle forming up. Balint Hatvaň following Petr Fulin really closely there, and he will be hot on his heels there. We are entering lap number 3, and you can really see the drivers abusing the track limits. First 3 places covered by 3 different car brands, and then it sort of seems that is just all VWs behind them. It's only interrupted with or in the 7th place because there is Tomáš Korený driving for HKC Racing, the Czech driver, one of the guys who have chosen the Alfa Romeo Giulietta Quadrifoglio Verde for the season. There he is, Tomáš Korený, in his Italian machine. Then it's one of the Audis in the hands of Keke Platzer in 8th, and then the i30 Hyundai driven by Gabriela Ilková in 9th. Tomáš Pekař bringing the Renault Megane RS into the top 10. So we've lost a couple of drivers who were high up on the grid, namely Konstantin Kletzer. He fell down to 13th, and maybe more importantly, Šimon Ladňák, because he was there on the second row of the grid in 4th, and he's currently way down in 16th. So race number 1 definitely has not started well for the Polish driver. This is Gabča Ilková trying to find a way past Keke Platzer. If I'm not mistaken, these two are teammates, or were teammates this season in the Virtual GT3 Championship, driving for a team Your Speed, whereas here in the TCR it is Tom Beghuyser who is the teammate of Keke Platzer, and I believe it was Tom Beghuyser actually who went off the track on the first lap. Petr Fulin, hang on a second, Petr Fulin dropping down to 7th. Something must have happened, and Gabča Ilková is trying to find a way around the outside now, because it seems that Keke Platzer was rather slow there, and Gabča Ilková trying her luck there. Petr Fulin was ready, but something has happened to Petr Fulin because he was second just a few moments ago, and now he's all the way down to 7th. So another drama happening for the Czech driver. And he is under constant pressure currently. Right now from Gabče Ilková. And she has managed to find some space on the inside line. Ooh, there's a contact. Petr Fulín tried to close that door on the exit of the corner, but both cars kind of met there in the middle of the track and had quite a nasty hit. I believe that in real world racing this would be a race-ending incident, because that was wheel to wheel and really aggressively. Luckily both drivers can continue here. Keke Platzer trying to use that situation and move himself back up in front of Gabče Ilková, but not really being successful so far. And then Tomáš Pekař watching the whole action through his windscreen. Really great battle there. Petr Fulín using as much of runoff as possible. The real-world European Touring Car champion from 2017, battling it out with his mates and rivals here in Austria in the virtual TCR championship. Gabče Ilková, she in the end had to settle for 8th. And currently she's got to really watch her rearview mirrors, because they are full of that Audi of Keke Platzer. And Keke Platzer finding the way around the outside. That's been a brilliant move so far. Let's see how that works out. Still the inside line benefiting Gabče Ilková, who remains 8th for the moment. Both of the drivers door to door, wheel to wheel in the second sector. Keke Platzer showing us that the outside line is not always the worst one. But Gabče Ilková definitely not throwing the towel in. But right now she already has to capitulate. Oh, she's definitely not giving up. And Tomáš Pekař trying to find his chance. Oh, there's a crash in the last corner. Tomáš Pekař tried to surprise both of them. And maybe he even managed to surprise himself. There was a contact, definitely not expected by Keke Platzer to suddenly have not one but 2 cars alongside. And Tomáš Pekař, it actually worked out for him really well. So he has moved himself up into 8th. And this is Yannick Mettler battling it out with his teammate Miklas Born. And Mettler moving himself back up into 3rd. They are both following Balint Hatváň. And then we've got the race leader and championship leader Bartosz Groszek. Absolutely unfazed, absolutely unchallenged, still leading the race. And he's already extended his gap to nearly 5 seconds. This is Joachim Gallage in 5th. Also capitalizing on the error from Petr Fulín. He is now defending from Tomáš Korený. So the battle raging on there. And Petr Fulín trying to get back into the mix. Yeah, the fight continues here, and Miklas Born is back in front of his teammate Yannick Mettler. So Mettler fell back down into 4th. This is Tomáš Korený trying to find his way past Joachim Gallage for 5th. We are entering lap number 8. Tomáš Korený now trying to use the slipstream on the run uphill into the second corner. And this is Joachim Gallage. He's really having to fight hard in his battle with Tomáš Korený. Tomáš Korení trying to find some space around the outside there. This is really neck and neck on that top straight, on the top of the hill. Ooh, and still using that outside line. Seems not to be that much of a disadvantage. Ooh, Joachim Galash trying to muscle his opponent off the track. But amazingly, Tomáš Korení has managed to stay there, even though he already had 2 wheels on the grass. But he did keep that line, and that turned into the inside line for that next corner. And that really helped out Tomáš Korení, and he has moved himself up into 5th. So Bartosz Groszek leading by over 5 seconds, or maybe over 6 seconds currently. Balint Hatváň holding on to 2nd, trying to build a bit more of a gap between himself and Niklas Born in 3rd. And this is Bartosz Groszek, remaining absolutely dominant. Balint Hatváň driving his Alfa Romeo Giulietta. He was 2nd also 2 weeks ago in race number 1 in Hungary. But then didn't really score that well in race number 2, so he dropped into 4th in the standings, but he's only 1 point behind 3rd placed Petr Fulín. And with the way the race is set up currently, it seems that Balint Hatváň would be moving up the order. Gabča Jilková extracting the better of, getting the better of Tomáš Pekář there in the last corner. But Tomáš Pekář fighting back and managing to get himself back into 8th in the opening corner of the circuit. He did make a bit of a mistake there in the last sector on the previous lap that opened the door for Gabča, but she didn't really manage to hold on to that 8th place. And she's also got Keke Platzer. Ooh, another mistake from Tomáš Pekář, again leaving the door really wide open. And Gabriela Jilková did really use that gap, but in the end it was Tomáš Pekář again making a better exit of that corner and moving himself back up into 8th. 2nd time already in, well, nearly just as many corners, really. It is a really interesting battle towards the bottom end of the top 10. Let's remind ourselves that it is the first 15 drivers who score points in the TCR world. This way the virtual championship is copying the real World Series. So the organizers are really trying to make it as realistic as possible. Keke Platzer trying to trouble Gabča Jilková. Gabča Jilková has only scored 3 points so far. She was rather unlucky in races in Hungary. She scored all 3 of her points in the qualifying in Budapest by qualifying 8th for race number 1, but then did not score a single point in any of the races. Keke Platzer, on the other hand, was outside the top 10 in qualifying in Hungary, but then scored pretty well in the races and collected 51 points in total, which means that Keke Platzer is currently sitting 6th in the standings, and he actually stood on the podium in race number 2, where he was 3rd with his Audi. And yeah, let's just remind ourselves what the standings look like currently. So Bartosz Groszek, yeah, absolutely 100% of the points so far to his name, so 90. And basically, we already know that here from Hungary, he's already got 10 more from qualifying, so the full 100 so far. And he's on the way to get another 40 for the race victory in race number 1 here at Red Bull Ring as well. 2 laps remaining. Niklas Born sitting in 2nd with 66 points and currently 3rd in this race, having started only 7th. Petr Fulin in 3rd in the championship with 54 points, so 12 adrift behind Miklas Born, but only 1 point in front of Balint Hatvaň. But let's focus on this battle for the moment. It is Miklas Born under pressure, or now pressuring his teammate Yannick Mettler, and it is Yannick Mettler who has moved up into 3rd. They're both trying to follow Balint Hatvaň, but if they keep battling it out as they are now, they will definitely be slower than the Hungarian. Yannick Mettler currently holding on to 3rd, so he did overtake Miklas Born in the 2nd corner. No, let's actually give the corners their names. It was the Remuskurve, as they say in German. We are currently entering the 2nd to last corner, which is named after Jochen Rindt, the country's champion from 1970 in Formula One, and to date the only person who was crowned champion of Formula One in memoriam, because he sadly died before the season ended, but in the remaining races he was not beaten by his rivals, so he remained in the lead. Another battle between the Autorama drivers. Niklas Born trying to get himself back up into 3rd, and he has managed to do so currently. We are on the last lap of the race. Niklas Born. Ooh, there's a crash between the teammates. Yannick Mettler lost it under braking into Schloss Gold Curve. And they banged wheels there, but luckily for both, they can continue unaffected. Bartosz Groszek, absolutely dominant so far this season. And he's already done 2 qualifyings and finishing his 3rd race, and he has not lost a single point so far. So having won the pole position, Bartosz Groszek winning race number 1 in Austria as well, and keeping it absolutely 100% at the Red Bull Ring too. So Bartosz Groszek remains unchallenged in 2020. Balint Hatvaň making it to 2nd in his Alpha. Then it is the end of the Autorama intra-team battle between Niklas Born and Yannick Mettler. And it seems that Niklas Born held on to 3rd. Well, for some reason, we've got Tomáš Koreny there now in 4th, in front of Petr Fulin, Joachim Galáš, Keke Platzer, Gabčílková, Tomáš Pekař, and Šimon Ladňák. But I believe that Yannick Mettler should still be up there. Let's hope that he did not run into any technical trouble so close from home, because that would really cost him a lot of points and also a great position. Well, actually not a great position because we are reversing the top 12, but if you finish towards the bottom end of the order, you will also start towards the bottom end of the order into race 2. So for some reason, Yannick Mettler is out of the standings there. Don't really know what happened to him. Let's see if we can find out. However, Bartosz Groszek, that is a fact there. And the Polish driver victorious again. So Bartosz Groszek remains unchallenged and our question remains unanswered. Will we find somebody who can put an end to the dominance of the Polish driver? So far not, and he has been absolutely brilliant. He has been really enjoying great wave of success and really using the virtual world as well as he can, because it is really, as we see here in Hungary, it is a big matter of making your track as straight as possible. And he's been really great at making the entries of the corners as wide as possible. Same goes for the exits, and then straightening out the apexes as well. So Bartosz Groszek, dominant yet again, this time from Balin Hatváň. So the first two remain the same as in Hungary in race number 1. And then we've got Miklas Born back on the podium. So it is actually getting tighter between the second and third placed man of the standings. Petr Fulin finishing a bit more further down, having lost some ground during the race. We did not really see that incident, but Petr Fulin was running second uh, at the beginning of the race, but then fell down to 7th and then managed to get himself at least back into 6th. We've got Yannick Mettler back in the standings, so he did finish 4th in the end. So I was not mistaken, and it was just some kind of a small technical glitch. So that is good news for Yannick Mettler, who is finishing, well, just below the podium, but still in 4th, which gives him a nice haul of points from race number 1 here in Hungary. Tomáš Koreni moving himself up in his Alpha into 5th in front of Petr Fulin, Joachim Galáš, Keke Platzer, Gabriela Jilková and Tomáš Pekar, who is scoring the 10th place, but the points also go all the way down to 15th. So also for Šimon Ladňák, who was rather unlucky in this race, having started 4th, Konstantin Kletzer down in 12th, then Karol Wittke, then we've got a Tanner and Martinek in 14th and 15th, so scoring the last 2 points positions in race number 1 here in Austria. So that's it for race number 1, and now we are expecting more brilliant action here from the Red Bull Ring. Let's not forget that we are reversing the top 12, so it will be really interesting now to see who is the most successful in race number 2. Bartosz Groszek will start on row number 6, so let's see if he can repeat the success from 2 weeks ago and move himself back into first. He was really dominant in that second race as well, overtaking everybody. And really, he was actually really brilliant on the opening lap, especially because he moved himself somewhere up towards 4th and 5th, if I remember it correctly. So we'll see how the first lap action goes for him here in Hungary. And yeah, the drivers from 11th and 12th will be on pole and on the first row of the grid here in Austria. And let's see the action, which will start in a short moment. So we've got around 1 minute left. So the drivers trying to get back onto the starting grid. And they are trying to align on the starting grid properly, so then we can give them green light and send them out racing. So let's see how that goes, and if that goes quickly enough for us to start the race in time. It should be actually Šimon Ladňák and also, yeah, who was it there? Šimon Ladňák starting 4th into race number 1. And Gabča Jilková out of the alignment there for some reason. That's odd. She should be automatically placed in the correct slot, provided she did not already jump the start. Okay, we will be racing and we'll actually see what this brings. And we are racing, and Gabčílková really starting from the middle part of the track. That is really crazy, definitely something we wouldn't be seeing in a real world. And it is the Konstantin Kletzer moving into first. From pole, it was Šimon Ladňák starting alongside him on the front row of the grid. Tomáš Pekář already overtaking Šimon Ladňák and taking second from him. And then there is this great group. Petr Fulín moving himself up, and there's a crash in the Remus Kurve. Joachim Galáš trying to overtake Petr Fulín. Yannick Mettler down in 10th, sorry. And one of the drivers losing out greatly in the Remus corner. Balint Hatváň in his red Alpha, battling it out there, and more crashing into each other in the Schlossgold corner. Šimon Ladňák currently third, behind Tomáš Pekář and our race leader Konstantin Kletzer. Tomáš Korený already up into fourth from Joachim Galáš, Miklas Born. Bartosz Groszek up into 7th from 12th on the grid, so he has already gained 5 places there. Great progress for the Polish driver, but I believe that Petr Fulín has run into some more bad luck on the opening lap of this race, and it seems to me as though he lost a couple of places yet again. Šimon Ladňák trying to find his way past Tomáš Pekář, but Peki holding on to second currently, which gives some breathing space to Konstantin Kletzer. Oh, it's really close between Šimon Ladňák and Tomáš Pekář, and there was actually a contact, which is a bit crazy because the inside line was all open and clear for Šimon Ladňák. I'm surprised that he didn't try an overtaking maneuver there. Instead, he decided to brake behind Tomáš Pekář, and there was a touch, and Šimon Ladňák sent Tomáš Pekář out of the track. He did not gain position there, but he is gaining one corner later. Tomáš Pekář not giving up. However, there is another touch, and that is sending Tomáš Pekář spinning. Tomáš Korený trying to find his way around the outside. Gabriela Ilková, having sort of started as the uninvited guest on the front row of the grid, dropped down to 11th after the start. So there was some kind of a crazy problem there. There's a contact between Tomáš Pekář, and this time it should be Joachim Galáš. Drivers being really aggressive this time out in Austria. Konstantin Kletzer remains in the lead from Šimon Ladňák and Tomáš Korený. Tomáš Pekář already dropping down to 4th. Then it is Miklas Born. Bartosz Groszek up into 6th. Battling it out with Balint Hatváň and Joachim Galáš. That's the group that we are watching right now. Petr Fulín dropping down to 9th. So another race that is not unfolding the way he would like it to be. Joachim Galáš trying it around the outside of Bartosz Groszek. The progress for the Polish driver is definitely not as fast as 2 weeks ago. And there was a contact, and Joachim Galáš actually sent Bartosz Groszek off the track, and it was immediately exploited by Balint Hatváň and Petr Fulín, who helped themselves to one further place, and they relegated Bartosz Groszek back down to 9th. Although Bartosz Groszek is already troubling Petr Furin for 8th. We keep on battling, and still, as we say in Czech, Bartosz Groszek pulling the shorter end of the rope. And he's already in the mix for 10th, actually, because René Martinek has been in touch there and tried his luck. However, in the end, Bartosz Groszek won that position back. So, Konstantin Kletzer leading the way, but only by 1 second from Šimon Ladňák. Then it's Tomáš Koreni in 3rd. Miklas Born has moved up into 4th, so he has overtaken Tomáš Pekas. Then it's Joachim Galáš down in 6th, in front of Bálint Hatváň, Petr Furín, Bartosz Groszek, René Martinek and Yannick Mettler. Yeah, somebody was missing there from the standings, but whoever it is, I've forgotten. He should be back in the standings. So Yannick Mettler currently in 11th from Gabčílková and Levente Lošonci. Tomáš Koreni fighting for 2nd with Šimon Ladňák. However, Ladňák is holding on to that advantages inside line, but it seems that Tomáš Koreni has just turned that into a disadvantage. He has found a way around. Ooh, but I'm really not sure if this is okay, because that was an overtake using the off-track area, and using an off-track area to your advantage is normally a subject of a penalty in motorsport. However, what we know for real now is that Šimon Ladňák is losing more ground, because he has just been overtaken by Miklas Born, although Šimon Ladňák is not giving up. There's a contact. Šimon Ladňák running off track through the grass after a contact with Miklas Born. And this promotes Tomáš Pekas up into 4th and Joachim Galáš into 5th. But look at this. This is the battle for 1st. This is the battle for the lead. Tomáš Koreni only 1/10 of a second over the line behind Konstantin Kletzer. And this time around we do not have Bartosz Groszek towards the top end of the top 10, which means there is a room for a new winner this season. Both drivers really trying to snatch that victory. And Tomáš Koreni now making it stick finally in the Remus Curve, finding the space on the inside line there. We are getting near the halfway mark of the race. Another battle. Bartosz Groszek trying to fight his way past Joachim Galáš. Having to go all the way around the outside, because Joachim Galáš is being defensive, as much as he possibly can. But he did not have a great exit from the last corner, and that is opening space for Bartosz Groszek yet again, but this time Petr Fulin is trying to get himself into the mix, and he's troubling the both Volkswagens there. So far not really being successful. Bartosz Groszek being the big winner there. Joachim Galash opening more space on the inside for Petr Fulin. And he's definitely trying to exploit that gap there. Battle continues into Schlossgold, and there's a crash between Petr Fulin and Bartosz Groszek. Petr Fulin really late on the brakes, and he did touch Bartosz Groszek from behind. There was a big shunt there, and that sent Bartosz into the gravel, which in turn helped Joachim Galash back into 6th. And this is a kind of incident that really should be penalized, because that was clearly the mistake of Petr Fulin, who was too late on the brakes, trying to overtake Joachim Galash and misjudging his braking point. We've got actually a complaint already by Keke Platzer, who is really not happy by the happy about that starting procedure, where we had Gabriela Ilkova in the middle of the grid, sort of somewhere on the front row. But definitely we can say that Gabriela Ilkova has not used that to her advantage, because she is down to 12th, having started towards the top mistakenly. But this will be reviewed by the stewards, how exactly that happened and what to do with it. So we are still continuing to race. No repeating of the starting procedure, no repeating of the race. Tomáš Koreni leading the way in his Alpha. Already from Miklas Born, because Miklas Born has moved himself up in front of his teammate, Konstantin Kletzer. So our erstwhile leader is now down to 3rd. Tomáš Pekař here in 4th with his Renault Megane. Then we've got Balint Hatváň in 5th, Joachim Galash in 6th. Still defending from 7th placed Bartosz Groszek. And then Petr Fulin, Yannick Mettler and René Martinek completing the top 10. We also have Šimon Ladňák, Gabče Ilková, Levent Lošonci, Stefan Tanner and Tom Beckhuyse, who under current circumstances would be scoring the remaining points. But Tomáš Pekař has decided that he is not willing to remain under the podium, and he's diving down the inside of Konstantin Kletzer. He maybe dove a bit too deep down. So Konstantin Kletzer making a nice switch back and finding his way back past Tomáš Pekař. Balint Hatváň also close in the mix. We are on the 9th lap out of 13. And the racing action has really been spectacular in this race. So far, there's another touch. Ooh, but it still seems to me that the cars really hold on really well to those contacts. We've already had a number of them, and pretty much never so far have I seen a car spinning completely. Drivers being able to kind of remain in place. And this is a continuing battle for 6th. Bartosz Groszek troubling Joachim Galash again. Into the first corner. This time textbook stuff, and Petr Furin again close there to capitalize on that. And Petr Furin actually getting two places at once, because not only did he get himself up in front of Joachim Galash, but he has also overtaken his big rival Bartosz Groszek, the championship leader. And it is Petr Furin currently up in 6th. Also in the meantime, Tomáš Pekař has lost out to Balint Hatváň, dropped down to 5th, but let's stay in this battle because it's really interesting, and it is between the championship top guys. Bartosz Groszek, the championship leader, troubling Petr Furin for 6th, trying to find a gap. Ooh, there is some. Didn't look like it. On the entry of the corner, another touch that sends Bartosz Groszek spinning, but yet again, as already commented on, the car's really holding well onto that and pulling their drivers out of trouble. This is really, really exciting to watch. Petr Furin keeping the inside line into the last corner, but Bartosz Groszek definitely not giving up. There are two more Volkswagen in the mix, them being Joachim Galash and also Yannick Mettler in 9th. 4 abreast, very nearly into the first corner. Absolutely amazing stuff. There's another crash. Bartosz Groszek ends up spinning and crashing into the barrier. Absolutely unbelievable. First corner of the 11th lap of the race, and Bartosz Groszek is sent out spinning after a contact. So Yannick Mettler, the big winner there, because he has gained all the positions that were there up for grabs. Yannick Mettler moving himself up into 6th, but he will have really hard work holding on to that 6th place, because Joachim Galash is really hungry for it. And exactly the same can be said and must be said about Petr Furin in 8th. He's already been in so many battles this race, but very often coming out of them as an unfortunate loser. And there was a contact between him and Bartosz Groszek, and after that contact and a big kiss into the barrier, Bartosz Groszek dropped down to 11th. So he's outside the top 10 currently. So now entering the penultimate lap of the race, it is more and more clear that for the first time this season we will not see Bartosz Groszek winning something. There he goes in 11th, and this is Balint Hatváň in 4th. This is the battle for last podium spot between Balint Hatváň and Konstantin Kletzer. Tomáš Korený holding on to that first place from Miklas Born, keeping that 1 second lead. Konstantin Kletzer in 3rd. But maybe not for very long. This is also an interesting battle. Joachim Galash, who apparently was overtaken a moment ago by Petr Furin, is moving himself back in front of his compatriot. Balint Hatváň still only 4th. Drivers really using that runoff as much as they can. But there is also Tomáš Pekař, and this was really bad exit by Konstantin Kletzer. And we are already on the last lap of the race. Balint Hatváň attacking Konstantin Kletzer into the first corner, and He is moving himself up into third. Balint Hatváň, but also Tomáš Pekas overtaking Konstantin Kletzer. Kletzer will not be happy about this because he's lost out a couple of places already there. Ooh, and the drama keeps on going. The battle keeps on continuing. It is neck and neck between Konstantin Kletzer and Tomáš Pekas. Kletzer holding on to that theoretically more advantages inside line, but Tomáš Pekas, whoa, there's a crash between the trio. It appeared for a moment that Tomáš Pekas might actually squeeze between both of the cars into third, but that gap was lost very quickly, and as a result there was a crash, and that simply reversed the order of the trio. So Konstantin Kletzer, after all, back into third, from Balint Hatváň in fourth and Tomáš Pekas in fifth. And we are completing the last lap of the race. It is Tomáš Koreni. So for the first time this season we will not see Bartosz Grošek, but it is Tomáš Koreni and his Alfa Romeo who is victorious in race number 2 in Austria at Red Bull Ring. We have our first new winner other than Bartosz Grošek in 2020. Miklas Born finishing the race well in second, and Konstantin Kletzer, after all those trouble, holding on to that third place from Balint Hatváň and Tomáš Pekas. Yannick Mettler finishing in sixth from Joachim Galáš, Petr Fulín, René Martinek and Šimon Ladňák, and Bartosz Grošek after that collision 2 laps from home, finishing outside the top 10, still in points, but definitely losing out a lot of them in race number 2. But still, his consistency should be enough for him to keep first position in the standings. So this was a dramatic and very interesting race, full of exciting battles, and also full of some controversy, around which there keeps being a hot discussion already, because we did have a problem at the start, and it was Gabča Jilková suddenly being thrown into the middle of the starting grid and having to start already, as she says, as we know now from her comments, already with a broken car in race number 2. So we'll see what comes out of that. But what we know now is that Bartosz Grošek, for the first time this season, not victorious in race 2 at Red Bull Ring. It is Tomáš Koreni making success in race number 2, having overtaken all of the opponents that he needed to. Tomáš Koreni winning for Alfa in race number 2. So it's the first mix-up of the season, but still Bartosz Grošek being a big winner of the second weekend of 2020, and we should have him on the line soon. Bartosz Grošek still managed to win the qualifying, win race number 1, and then he ran into trouble towards the end of race number 2, but still he is remaining as the hot bet of the 2020 season when it comes to the championship chances. So it is Tomáš Koreni winning race number 2, and should see the results anytime soon. He used actually the reversed grid order and moved himself up the grid. He actually was not on the front row of the grid. We had Konstantin Kletzer and Šimon Ladňák there. And then Tomáš Koreni did absolutely everything he needed to win race number 2. He overtaken all the remaining opposition there. So let's see what the results are of race number 2. It is Tomáš Koreni from Miklas Born. Miklas Born keeping his pretty constant run of results with second. Konstantin Kletzer then defending his third position and his last podium spot from Balint Hatváň and Tomáš Pekas after that nerve-wracking battle on the last lap of the race. Yannick Mettler finishing in sixth in front of Joachim Galáš, Petr Fulín, René Martinek and Šimon Ladňák, who are completing the top 10. Bartosz Grošek just outside the top 10 in 11th, but still scoring points. Matěj Kácovský in 12th from Tom Beghuyse, Stefan Tanner, and then it's Matěj Laškiewicz in 15th. So Laškiewicz scoring that last point of the race. Tomáš Koreni, our second winner of 2020 in 4 races. So it is getting spiced up. Let's see. And let's actually hear from still the most or the best scoring man of the second weekend and our championship leader, Bartosz Groszek, whom we should have on the line. Bartosz Groszek victorious in qualifying and race number 1 here in Austria. So let's see what he has to say about his luck and his fortunes of the second race weekend of the season. Bartosz Groszek dominating the qualifying, still being fastest on track and running away with it in race number 1. And we should have him on the line anytime soon now.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, guys.
Okay. Hi, Bartosz. Congratulations again for this time, not a perfect weekend, but definitely what seemed to be the perfect weekend up until race number 2. So let's begin with qualifying in race number 1. Tell us about your pace and how it looked from your side, because from our point of view, it looked like an easy victory, but maybe judging on the gap in qualifying, it maybe wasn't.
Yeah, I wasn't happy with my pace in quali. I did, I think, 0.3 tenths slower time than in practice. So it was close with Peter. Luckily, in race 1, I think something happens with Peter, and I had pretty lonely race. But I haven't got that much luck in race 2.
Yeah, we saw that crash towards the end of the race, and not only that, but also the race up to that point. Because unlike in Hungary, where you managed a mega opening lap, this time is also was not bad, but then it kind of fell into pieces. What was your point on that crash? Because we kind of only saw it towards its end. There was, I think, contact with Petr Fulin. What happened on track in that first corner?
I was battling side by side with Peter Fulin, and I think under braking I got hit from behind from Joachim Galas, and that ends my race. But actually, I had pretty much like 3 or 4 contacts with Joachim. He was really dirty racing in this race. I got pushed like 2 or 3 times from him out of the track, so I wasn't happy with his driving.
There was also a pretty bad crash with Petr Fulin earlier on in the race when Petr misjudged his braking going into the third corner. Tell us towards the end of the race, how was your car's handling?
I mean, I have pretty big damage in the back from the dive from Petr. He was battling with Joachim and he misjudged his braking point. I wasn't lucky and got hit from behind, sent out of the track. But overall, my pace in the race 2 was pretty good. But like I said, I didn't have luck. That's it.
Okay, so just tell us, last thing, will there be some comments and maybe chat with some of the opponents about the behavior on the track?
Yeah, probably with Joachim and Petr. I'm not happy with the driving that day.
But overall, anyway, the weekend worked out pretty well for you. So you are remaining as the championship leader. So best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thanks, guys, and see you later.
Thank you, Bartosz. And we also should have, if I'm right, Tomáš Koreni on the line. He was the victor and winner of race number 2. That was a race well fought from the Alpha man. So let's hear how the race was from his point of view. Tomáš, can we hear each other? Okay, let's try again because there appears to be a slight problem on the line. So Tomáš Koreni, our first different winner of 2020, besides Bartosz Groszek, having maximized his potential in race number 2. So we'd like to know what the race looked like from his perspective. Okay, it seems that the trouble keeps on going. Sadly, we cannot hear from Tomáš Koreni. Anyway, it definitely spiced up the action in race number 2. So definitely as spectators, we hope for more exciting fighting, exciting moments, exciting incidents as well. Because even the crashes, although some drivers might not be happy about them, it is just the virtual world. Nobody can get hurt, maybe other than somebody's ego. So it's all very safe and then very spectacular for us as the viewers. So let's hope that the remaining 3 weekends of the season remain at least just as exciting as the first two, and we'll see how the championship goes on from here. Yeah, next time we should be racing in Croatia at Grobnik, a track that is pretty twisty and pretty narrow. So also promises a really exciting racing. Let's see each other there in 2 weeks' time, and I hope you're enjoying the virtual TCR racing. And from now, it is from the studio a very warm goodbye.